Hey everybody, I hope you guys are healthy and safe. So 2 months ago, I attended Google I/O where Google introduced its first ever foldable phone. I got to try it briefly, and even though I came away impressed, there were two things Google said during the announcement that still had me roll my eyes a little bit. Google called the Pixel Fold the thinnest foldable ever, and also the best zoom lens in the foldable. I knew neither of those were true because the Huawei Mate X3 exists, and I have it here. I've been using it, and yeah, this is by far the best foldable hardware in the world right now. In fact, it feels almost like a full generation ahead of the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 4. So I actually already made a first impressions video on the Mate X3 about a month ago, but I will go over those points really quickly here before I dive into my experiences using this phone. So the Mate X3 is the lightest and thinnest foldable phone in the world right now. It weighs only 239 grams. It is 24 grams lighter than the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 4. It measures 11.8 millimeters thick when folded and 5.3 millimeters when unfolded. This is significantly thinner than the Z Fold 4, but this ultra thinness isn't new. I've actually seen this in the Xiaomi Mix Fold 2 last year. In fact, the two phones' overall thickness are very similar, but Huawei Mate X3 one-ups the Xiaomi Mix Fold 2 significantly in that number one, the hinge can stay in place midway, so Samsung calls this flex mode, but this allows you to put the phone on a flat surface to work as its own tripod. The Xiaomi Mix Fold 2 cannot do that. The hinge can either stay open or stay closed. The second big improvement is that the Mate X3 actually has water resistance. It has IPX8, which means it is completely submergible underwater. Very briefly, the Xiaomi Mix Fold 2 has no such water resistance rating at all. And then also, the Mate X3 has a Periscope zoom lens that can do 5 times optical zoom, while the Mix Fold 2 only has a pretty weak 2 times telephoto zoom lens. So when you consider all the things Huawei was able to do, it is absolutely uncanny, unbelievable that it made a foldable phone this thin. The Mate X3 has a 6.4-inch outside screen. When the phone's folded, it actually feels like a normal phone. This thing's actually just barely thicker than an iPhone 14 Pro Max. So in the hand, it is very comfortable and natural to use. And for the phone, you have a 7.8-inch display on the inside, 2224 resolution by 2416, so that's like a little bit north of 2K resolution. And more impressively, the crease in this phone is the faintest I have ever seen. Now clearly, the crease here, it's less noticeable than the Galaxy Z Fold 4's crease, but that's not new. Every Chinese foldable phone has a crease that's less noticeable than the Z Fold 4. But the Huawei Mate X3's crease is also less noticeable than the crease in the Xiaomi Mix Fold 2 and the Honor Magic VS. So this is by far the faintest crease ever. You can still see it if you look at it at extreme angles with a white screen on, but for the most part, if you have a color wallpaper, you can't see the crease. It's about as flawless a screen as it gets right now. The phone's powered by Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, and it does not support 5G. So the lack of 5G and the fact that it is a one-year-old chip is due to the US sanctions. Like, I don't know what these sanctions are trying to do. It's like they won't let Huawei use Google, but they let Huawei buy chips from Qualcomm, but then also just 4G chips, not 5G chips. Like, it's kind of inconsistent, and why I believe that it's mostly political games. Like, there's no real reasons for these sanctions. But the A Plus Gen 1, even the 4G version, is more than powerful enough even in 2023. I've had absolutely no issues jumping into apps, playing games, going on Instagram, doing any of the stuff. Huawei has a very good native video editor too, like that's directly in its photo gallery, so you don't need to download this. And the video editor allows you to trim clips not just from the front end and the back end, but you can also chop clips in the middle, stitch them back together, crop into the frame, all of that. And I find that processing here to be very fast because of the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. It's definitely a faster chip for video editing than the Google Pixel's Tensor G2. Now in terms of optics, the Mate X3 has a 50 megapixel main camera with an f1.8 aperture. On top of that, there's Huawei's X-Mitch engine, which is Huawei's like photo processing pipeline, and it's very good at finding dynamic range. A lot of times I'm shooting against harsh backlight and the photos come out perfectly balanced, as all things should be. There's also a 13 megapixel ultra-wide camera here that does the job. The ultra-wide camera suffers a little bit at night, but it is very good for foldable phones ultra-wide camera. But my favorite part of this camera system is the zoom lens. It's a 5 times periscope zoom lens, 12 megapixel. This is huge to me because I take a lot of zoom photography when I have a slab phone, and I don't like that most foldable phones out there don't have good zoom lenses. The Z Fold 4, Xiaomi Mix Fold 2, they all have pretty, average zoom lenses. The Periscope zoom lens here obviously isn't as good as the Periscope zoom lens in a modern slab flagship, but it is by far the best zoom lens in a foldable phone right now. There are also two selfie cameras, 8 megapixel on the front and also 8 megapixel on the inside, and it does the job. I don't have any complaints with the selfie camera. Video performance is also pretty good with decent stabilization, as you can see. Overall, the camera performance here is definitely very good for a foldable phone and kind of hangs close enough to a slab smartphone. It's not going to beat a slab smartphone, but it's close enough that this is not a major compromised camera system. Okay, I'm filming myself with the main camera right now, but the phone is opened up so I can see myself with the outside screen. So there's a 4,800 mAh battery in here, and it's good enough to last all day because Huawei's battery optimization is always really good. So on a 12-13 hour day, the phone will finish with more than 20% to spare. If you're having a really heavy day, like 14-15 hours out, then the phone's probably going to run out at the end. You can charge the phone wired at 66 watt speeds, the charge is included, and 50 watt wirelessly. The Mate X3 also has excellent stereo speakers that come off from both left and right side of the phone. Now let's get to the elephant in the room. The Mate X3 cannot run Google mobile services. This is not new. If you're watching a Huawei video this far in, you probably know about this. And I've been using the phone for several days now as it is, and I actually think it's okay. Like I always say, it is not ideal, but it is not completely broken because you can have workarounds for a lot of Google services. For example, for YouTube, you can just watch YouTube on a web browser, and you can even save the web browser as an icon on the home screen so you have a YouTube app. It just doesn't look like the mobile app. Google Maps and Chrome actually works on the Mate X3 completely fine. With Google Maps, you can navigate, you can do Street View, you can look up reviews, all that. You just can't log into your Google account, so you can't write your own review. As for Gmail and Google Calendar, Microsoft Outlook actually supports both of those perfectly fine. This is not like some kind of hack. Both Gmail and Google Calendar work 100% natively on Microsoft Outlook. And yeah, there's no Google Play Store, but you can install a third-party app store like APK Pure, or you can use Pedal Search. This is Huawei's own search engine for finding apps and other things, and it's actually pretty cool. So there's a Pedal search bar on the home screen. When you tap into it, you can search an app like say Instagram or Spotify, and it will bring you to the most trusted source to download that app. And Pedal Search has already curated all the results so that you just have to tap a couple of buttons and it will install the app on your Mate X3. As for EMUI, they're both good and bad. I like that when you slide from the side, you bring up this little multitasking bar. This allows you to tap on an app to launch it into a small floating window, or you can drag an app into half the screen to begin split screen multitasking. But there are some shortcomings too. For example, I really dislike that when I long press on an app, I don't get to jump into the app's information directly from here. On every other Android phone, I have the Samsung Fold 4 here. If I long press on an app, you see I have the option to jump into information. And from here, I can turn on notification or turn it off and make other settings. As you can see, I have Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Telegram, WeChat, WhatsApp, Chase Bank, Netflix. All the apps have been working fine here. This is the global European version of the Mate X3, by the way, not the China version. So ultimately, the combination of a high price and a lack of GMS makes the Mate X3 a niche phone. This is not a device for most people. But if you are a foldable enthusiast or a fan of bleeding edge mobile tech, this is worth looking at because this hardware is legit a generation or two above what anyone else is doing with the foldable phones right now. And it makes me kind of mad that this thing doesn't have GMS because, like I said, even though you can use it like as it is still a compromised experience. I wish that it had GMS, then it would just be like a flawless foldable phone. I'm quite pissed off actually with all the shenanigans. But anyway, so this is the Huawei Mate X3. I have a lot more content coming up, including the Huawei P60 Pro and the Google Pixel Fold and a couple of other Apple devices. So if you're interested in keep up to date with all the latest in consumer tech, please consider subscribing to my channel. It will help me a lot. Thanks for watching.